What do you say, guys? Welcome to the Cubs baseball channel. And today we got something fun for you. One of my buddies, Tim Hagerty, is going to come on and talk about his book, Tales from the Dugout. We spend a lot of time in the booth, and we get to see a lot of fun stuff. So I hope you enjoy. We'll tell you some stories and let you know how you can pick up this book. It'd be a great gift for Hanukkah or Christmas. Welcome to the Cubs baseball channel. If you're not part of what we do, make sure you like and subscribe, and let's talk some baseball. All right, there he is, Tim Hagerty. What's up, dude? I'm Mick Gillispie. Thanks for hanging out with us. And how you been?
Great, Mick. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, it's always great to see you. And I'm excited about the book, man. You know what? I've got a lot of tales from the dugout, but I've never put them in a book. You have more tales from the dugout than anybody. With all of the stuff that you're doing, including play-by-play. How did you come up with this, with this idea to put it on paper?
Yeah, it has stories from the present day, but it also goes all the way back to the 1800s. In addition to broadcasting games, I've always loved baseball history and baseball research, have written articles for various places. And in 2012, I was researching something else, and I came across this story from the 1880s. A Texas League game got delayed when a wild bull ran on the field. And that's when I realized I do this for a living, and I've never heard this story. There are just so many stories from minor league baseball history that a lot of sports fans don't know about. So it was an ongoing document for 10 years.
Well, we've seen a lot. Yeah, I've never seen a bull run out on the field before. I'm trying to think what the craziest thing is. We had some bats fly out of the sky and fall on the field at Smoky Stadium, which happens occasionally. And then you got to take a towel and you throw it over the bat and then let them go outside, right on the backside of the stadium. And then sometimes the same guy will fly right back in the stadium and fall down. There was a skunk in Huntsville. Remember that, Homer? But not a bull. What do you do when a bull runs out on the field?
Well, despite my journalistic efforts, I was unable to figure out who owned this bull. But what I know is it kicked up dust. Fans are shrieking. It actually knocked down part of the wooden outfield fence. And it was funny. At the end of the article, it said, almost on a side note, it said the game was halted early. Well, I would imagine so. I would imagine we're not going to continue playing after a bull tramples onto the field.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't see that happening. Well, let's talk about some Cubs stories, because I know you got some that would involve the Cubs and things that happened over the years. What are some of your best Cubs stories in the book?
Of course, one of the best Cubs of all time, Billy Williams. I was able to find this article about his first minor league contract. This is in 1956. It included some compensation, of course, but they actually had it officially written in there that Billy Williams was to get a 15-cent cigar for his dad as part of signing this minor league contract. So Billy Williams in the Hall of Fame has amazing statistics. He's from your neck of the woods in Alabama. And as part of his minor league contract, there was a cigar included.
Yeah, Whistler, Alabama. I'll have to ask him about that next time I see him. Love hanging out with Billy. He's always got a good Whistler story, including and you used to work off of Satchel Paige Boulevard in Mobile. He knew Satchel and Satchel's family. Yeah, I think he was like one of Satchel's brothers, and he were about the same age, and maybe one of his sisters. But they all played ball together and stuff. So, and I've always been a little bit infatuated by Satchel Paige. Like, what would it have been like had he played his career in the major leagues? I think he could have gotten 300 or 400 wins. I know that sounds crazy, but the way that those guys pitched, as good as he was.
So this is one of my favorite stats of all time. I'm going to get it right. Satchel Paige, when he shows up to the American League, he is at 46 years old, 1953. Satchel Paige is 46, pitching for the Browns, and had a 3.53 ERA in 57 games at age 46. So to go back to your point, What if he's in the American League in his 20s and his 30s? You know, I think right now you can make an argument he's the best pitcher that's ever lived. And I think definitely that could have proven it had we known more of what he could achieve. Researchers are still compiling Negro League statistics. The best as we can try, we really don't have the complete picture the same way we would had he played in the American League or the National League.
Yeah, yeah. In Birmingham, right by the Barron Stadium, they have a Negro League. It's not the Negro League Hall of Fame, but it's like the Southern Negro League Museum. And one of the coolest things in there is they have a Satchel Paige simulator where it, like, you know, you push a button and it'll be like, oh, here's this pitch he throws and here's that pitch, you know. You can stand in and they see him come in and then he throws the ball. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't know that there's ever been anyone better than him. I mean, and that's a great example of it. I mean, who's that old still getting outs, right? And he started young and was healthy all the time. He had a rubber arm. There was that charisma that he brought to the table. I just love like thinking about Satchel Paige. And Billy Williams said he liked to fish. And then sometimes he would forget to take the fish out of his Cadillac. So not only would you see him coming, but you would smell him heading your way too.
Wow.
So isn't that crazy?
Well, it's amazing. You know, if it's that great trivia question, if you were to name the cities that have produced the most Major League Hall of Famers, Mobile, Alabama wouldn't be one of your first guesses, but there's Satchel Paige, Billy Williams, Hank Aaron, of course. Ozzie Smith was born there. Who am I forgetting? There's
Willie McCovey.
Exactly.
Yeah,
McCovey.
Stretch. Mm-hmm.
So Ozzie Smith, I had a chance to interview him one time, and when talking about Mobile, he joked there must be something in the water. A lot of great ball players from there.
Yeah, and you wouldn't think that because he went to L.A., but yeah, he started out not Willie, but Ozzie started out in Mobile and then ended up at San Luis Obispo.
Right.
So for Cubs people, you know that he was on the same team as Tommy Byers, who's been like a hitting instructor for the Cubs and you know, used to minor league hitting coach and all that stuff. Great guy. And he was on the team and all the scouts started to show up. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, who's this Tommy Byers guy? You know, so that's why it's good to have those guys around, give you a look too. So what else? Tell me some other interesting stuff that is worth talking about in this. I don't want you to give the whole book away, but maybe half of it. Give me half of the book.
Yeah, it has 1001 stories. It has a bunch of illustrations. It's a very visual book. Of course, the Cubs continue to have their AAA affiliate in Des Moines. And in 1990, at an Iowa Cubs game, visiting Indianapolis center fielder Jim Steels ran back, collided with the fence, and his spikes actually got stuck to the fence. And the Iowa Cubs grounds crew had to run over and rescue him. So the game got delayed because the outfielder got stuck to the wall in Iowa.
Yeah, that's crazy. Have you ever seen anything like that before?
No, but I did find that it happened somewhere else. I believe it was in the early 1950s. This is in the book as well. In Salt Lake City, visiting Billings outfielder Bobby Cherry ran back and his arm actually went through the wooden wall.
Oh, wow.
And the ball was resting right next to him. And the opposing batter legs out an inside the park home run. It had to be so maddening to be an outfielder. This guy's running around the bases and the ball is right there next to you, but you're stuck, so you couldn't get it.
Yeah. I mean, wouldn't that be a ground rule double? I mean, I guess not, right? But you can't pull your arm back. I know what you're talking about, those plywood, the plywood boards that you paint the advertisements on, and they do thin out over time, or maybe, you know, it was just the force of that hit, you know, right through the wall. But
yeah, the scanners were different back then. Those things would get rickety. The most famous incident, of course, is Rodney McRae, May of 1991. He was the Vancouver outfielder who ran through the fence in Portland, Oregon. And I had a chance to interview McRae and also the news photographer that took that shot. And it's an interesting story. It was a very quiet night. It was Memorial Day weekend. And it was also a very boring, slow first couple of innings. There was no highlights. So this news photographer stuck around. Had there been a couple of home runs or a diving play, that photographer might have gone back to the studio, but he stuck around. And that's how we have video of Rodney McRae running through the fence. As you know, those TV news photographers, if they get some action early, they head back to the studio to get their sportscast ready.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, had there been a fire across town, we might not have video of Rodney McRae running through the fence. I'm sure your viewers know the play I'm talking about. It's been widely seen. And it's one of those things, you know, what if there's no video and somebody told you there was a AAA outfielder who ran through the fence? You might not believe it.
Yeah, I can hear Mel Allen on This Week in Baseball. We go to the minor leagues, and there's and there's Rodney McRae. How about that? You know, running through the wall. Yep. Holy cow! Yeah, there was a time when we started in broadcasting before before iPhones. This is iPhone 15, makes me current, where you didn't necessarily get the video of what was going on. I mean, think about how many great manager umpire arguments that weren't seen. And then one was seen, maybe the greatest one of all time in Chattanooga, which I know you remember that one. And
not to hop in on your story, but Philip Wellman, who had that legendary tirade and ejection, he's crawling, he's biting the rosin bag. The team I broadcast for now, the El Paso Chihuahuas, the Padres AAA manager, Philip Wellman is the manager of the team I work for now. So he does not look at it as his fondest moment. I don't think it's really a story he loves revisiting, but he is willing to smile when it gets brought up.
I know him. I love him. Think he's one of the best, man. Ran into him at a cigar shop last year, I think, and talked to him for a while, and just he's awesome. I mean,
he loves those cigars.
Yeah, and what's great about about that is it was just entertainment to him, you know, and that's kind of how the game used to be. Like, people were showing up, and I interviewed him right afterwards back in the day, you know, like we played them, and you know, he's like, you know, people pay to come, it's entertainment. Like, there was no like animosity or hard feelings or anything like that, you know. And it's like, or maybe it was right before that. Maybe he had one. I think it was right before that, looking back, where he had made a sandcastle on home plate in Montgomery. And so I had the newspaper story of the sandcastle on top of home plate, but we didn't have the video. And then the famous one in Chattanooga. But can you imagine, like, if over the years, if everybody just had this thing going, just to have something? But all these games are on video anyway now, you know, which wasn't the case with the minor leagues up until maybe 6 years ago. Do you scour the?
I thought about that this spring. Sorry, Mick, you broke up a moment. Go ahead.
No, go. I was just going to say, do you scour like the video to look for stuff to kind of put into the book? And you said you thought about it. Yeah. What do you think about that?
Well, first off, that was really helpful because, for example, the State College Spikes, a New York Penn League team a couple of years ago, had a sheep delay. It was some sort of agriculture night, and one of the farm animals got loose, and they had to delay the game because there was a sheep on the field. And through MLB TV, you're able to go back and pinpoint the exact date of when it happens. So yes, for current stories, that was very helpful. And I was thinking about that, what you're saying. The El Paso Chihuahuas, the team I broadcast for, we had Fernando Tatis Jr. for 8 games on rehab assignment at the beginning of this season. Not only is it a rehab assignment of an all-star, one of the biggest stars in the game, but he's also coming back from a performance-enhancing drug suspension. So this is different than an injury. There's a lot of attention on these games. And one night he hit 3 home runs and drove in 8. And that video is tweeted by SportsCenter. It appears on SportsCenter. You know, you look at the video the day later, and at the bottom where it says views, it says 5 million.
Wow.
Luckily, the call came out okay. That's not a good call to screw up if 5 million people are going to see it. But it made me think of exactly what you're saying, where I was in the Southern League 2005 through 2007. That's where I got to know you. And at that time, the online audio streaming was everywhere, but we also didn't have smartphones that was playing audio at that time. And you also didn't have the video that bounces around the web through social media instantly. So if a Fernando Tatis Jr. like game happens in 2005, there's way fewer people that sees that video. Yeah,
no doubt. It's getting bigger and bigger, you know, just our games in general, like, you know, they can stand alone. Like, it's a regular TV broadcast. You really don't need a network to put it out there. You know, you get a couple good players and have an exciting season and do a nice job with the broadcast. People are going to show up and find it. And especially if maybe the big league team is doing really well and they're excited about up and coming, or maybe they're not doing so well and they want to know what's on the way. But it used to not be like that. You know, you just kind of disappear, and then once in a while something would happen, like Michael Jordan would come through,
right?
And then everybody wanted to pay attention to that just because they were a fan of him. They liked Mike.
I'm sure you find this, but to me, that's so noticeable when the Chihuahuas have a game and the Padres don't. All of a sudden, you're getting messages from San Diego. The Cubs and their vast fan base, I'm sure you experienced that. If the Smokies are playing and the Cubs have an off day, you know, suddenly there might be a couple more thousand people at various parts online that are hearing your voice.
Yeah, and that's kind of exciting. You know, it's trying to build that audience. What's the craziest thing that you put in this book? Craziest story that happened? Something that's like, or maybe give me a couple of them that you're like, man, when I'm researching this, like, I can't believe that this happened.
I'll tell a Cubs related story. Is Randy Bush still a Cubs executive?
Yeah, Bushy.
One time he was in the Mobile press box, and we talked about this years ago when I was in the Southern League. He hit a 200-mile home run. He was playing for Toledo in 1982 in Charleston, West Virginia, and the old ballpark in Charleston had a railroad track right behind the right field fence, and he hit a high, soaring home run that goes out of the stadium and landed in a moving coal train that kept on going across West Virginia. So the ball was hit, and it didn't land until 200 miles later. So to me, that's the type of story somebody tells you that in person, and you instantly want to know the dates, all of the details. So that was a fun one to put in the book. There's a fun illustration of that one in the book as well. A crazy one, probably the one that took me the longest to pinpoint, was a fly ball disappeared in 1978. And there's some big names involved in this story. The home team in the AA Eastern League is Jersey City. The visiting team is Bristol, Connecticut. Wade Boggs is playing for Bristol. Ricky Henderson's playing for Jersey City. And a right-handed batter hits a high fly ball to right field, and the ball vanishes. It did not land on the field. It did not go over the fence. It did not go in the stands. It was a clear night. It wasn't a fog wind situation. And I know this sounds crazy, but I spoke to an employee who was there that night. I spoke to players who were on the field. I communicated with a fan who was at the game, and they all describe it the same way. Everyone just sort of looked at each other. This ball went up and didn't come down. And the reason I believe it is that the umpires had to get together and decide what to call. So to me, if the umpires actually have to discuss what are we going to do here, that shows they truly didn't know where this ball went. So they gave the batter a double. So there's precedent. If you're calling a Smokies game in April and a ball disappears, it's a double.
Yeah, that's so they really don't know what, still to this day, don't know what happened to it?
There were reports that there was a kid behind the outfield fence holding a ball. That was a theory for a while, but then as you looked closer, it didn't look like a game ball. One person who bought my book sent me an email and said that apparently David Copperfield was from near Jersey City. Wonders if there's a magician who did something with it.
Yeah. It's so crazy. Huh. There's probably some kind of explanation for that, but that's something that I haven't seen before.
Yeah, I don't know if it was some kind of low-flying big bird that somehow seized it. But it was really the reason why I believe it is that this is in 1978, and I'm speaking to people more than 40 years after it happens, and all of them are still saying the same things. We all just sort of looked at each other. Where'd the ball go? Man,
that's crazy. Really interesting. How often do you go to these stories when you're doing games?
I'd like to do this day in history style. I have a document that tells me the stories in the book, and I'm able to say on June 1st, here's what happened. As you know, particularly if you have a lopsided game where the pitchers are less important, a phrase I like to keep in mind, Tony La Russa said that he would manage the scoreboard. The scoreboard tells you what you have to do. And to me, I like to broadcast to the scoreboard. I'm not going to talk about a disappearing fly ball in the 8th inning of a tie game with runners on base, but you can talk about it in the 3rd inning. So to me, the innings feel different, and there are appropriate times to talk about this and tell the story fast. I think that you really, especially on radio, get to the point. You don't want to get too sidetracked from the game that's happening in front of you.
Yeah, great point. Great point. I do at this date in baseball history in the 6th inning every night. But depending on what's going on, sometimes I will get, like I'll give you an example. Like Willie Mays, it may be just say this is the date that Willie Mays hit his 500th home run. So the story might be about what his day was like. Or it could be about the person who caught the ball. Or it could be about his first game as a pro, or playing with Piper Davis, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the same date. I mean, we've been doing this for so long, it's like, and what I want to do is basically find a different angle to that famous moment. Some games it's, like this because of what's going on. And then some games, you end up talking about it for a half an hour, like, or you run out of stuff,
What's so important about you doing that is some life comes into our voice when we're telling something that we're really interested in. And
yeah,
this is interesting. And here's why I think you're going to find it interesting. Whereas if you're just reading thisdayinbaseballhistory.com, it might sound like you're reading. So I bet on those days where you find something really interesting that maybe was new to you, that there's some extra enthusiasm from you when telling that story.
Yeah, I could be. And I also think, too, that the perspective that you have, because, we've been around long enough now to add perspective to what we're talking about. If you get straight out of college, I mean, you just don't have that. You didn't have that when I left college. But now it's like, you talk about Billy Williams. Well, I know him,
right.
I've hung out with him quite a few times. I could totally see him, putting a cigar in for his dad. And I could hear I can hear him telling me the explanation why, So I think that's kind of one of the things you develop as a broadcaster over the years, is perspective. And you can't buy that. You can't be born into that. You just have to go live a life to get it, Talking about perspective, what are some of the best stories that you feel like kind of lend themselves to perspective?
Perspective. There was an amazing story in the 1900s. Houston, then still a minor league team at this time, they were on a train going to the next city. And this mother was unable to care for her young son and left this poor kid on a train. The Houston baseball team, the Houston Buffaloes, adopted this kid. He'd hang around the clubhouse. And there was a player, Roy Aiken, and his wife, Carrie, actually legally adopted this kid who grew up to be successful, had a job in the Dallas Water Department. I think that you might think from a distance that a 2-year-old kid could be better places than being in a professional baseball clubhouse and dugout when it comes to maybe learning things. But I guess when you mentioned perspective, that came to mind. That, I mean, what an interesting human story that started off so sad, but had a happy ending because of a professional baseball team.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's a really great point. And an interesting story. I mean, could that happen today? No, but it happened back then. How about with some of baseball's best players, the historical guys? Like, do you have any Babe Ruth or Willie Mays or Ryne Sandberg type stories? Ernie Banks?
I love in your ballpark, Sandberg Alley. That's something I like to do, was give people a feel for current minor league ballparks. So we talked about Sandberg Alley, the area at your stadium in Sevierville, named after, of course, the former Smokies manager that had success there and went on to manage in the majors. The Nashville Sounds having a guitar scoreboard, why the Albuquerque Isotopes have Simpson statues in the ballpark. Each one of those, I think, made a nice story. People love ballparks, even as a subset of their love of baseball. That's one of the things that I love the most about baseball. It's not like hockey where the arenas look a lot alike. Every ballpark, major leagues and minor leagues, really doesn't have a twin. So, yeah, thanks for throwing up that image. There's the team at Syracuse in 1885. Their uniforms weren't ready on opening day, so they took the field in dress suits. And I love the illustration they did of that one there.
That's pretty cool. I like how the book's laid out too. I mean, if you're like, it'd be a great book to, you know, like put in the car for trips. If like, you know, somebody that's in the passenger seat could like read through and you guys could talk about it. You know, it'd be a fun book for that. You know, obviously if you're not a huge reader, you know, like it's not like you're getting overwhelmed with pages and pages. It's like, hey, here's a funny story. Here's the facts for it. And it just makes it for an easy read.
Thank you. That's what I hoped. I felt to pack in 1001 stories to one reasonably sized book that they had to be quick. I tried to put a catchy headline above all of them. And I think the illustrations make it a visually interesting book. And really, no page is connected to the next. You can really open it up to any spot. And I like to think most stories produce some kind of reaction of either laughing or astonishment.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it's a great book. You can get it at Amazon and anywhere that you get books these days. How's that been like to you know, go on Amazon and then see, oh, look, there's a Tim Hagerty book. And was this your first book?
This is my second book. The first came out in 2012. It's also a visual book about the craziest team names in minor league history. So that one's 11 years old. It's a little bit harder to find new copies of that. But it's been very exciting. It's in many bookstores across the country. So a couple of times I was on a road trip, walk into a Barnes & Noble in some random city, and there's your book. So that was really a highlight, seeing it in stores. And it's interesting, on Amazon, it has a sales ranking. So really every morning you can check how it's done over the past 24 hours. I tried to limit myself to only one of those per day. You don't want to make it an obsession to how it's doing on Amazon, but the exciting thing is the message I'm getting that a lot of people see it as a great holiday gift. So, you know, as we speak here today and the holidays are approaching, it has done really well lately.
Yeah, it's a perfect book to have, you know, like coffee table or something like that, you know, bathroom. I always put a book in the bathroom, you know, and read those as well. Anything that I'm really like kind of just planning on, like I kind of want to look at it and think about it, you know, it's my studio in there, I guess. It's terrible to say that, but
so you're in your actual studio. You're not in the bathroom now, right?
No. But I'll tell you a story is that it would be great for Tales from the Dugout is that when I was in the Coastal Plain League, one of the teams didn't have enough room in the press box. So I broadcast it from the bathroom. So like there was a window in the bathroom that looked out onto the field. And, you know, that's the dedication that I have for this craft. Okay. And that made it easy too. Because if you were in the booth and you had to go to the bathroom, you could, you know, go to a break and you wouldn't really even be gone that long. You know how it is. In some places you got to run your ass off to get down and back. Right.
I've known you a long time. How have I never heard this story?
Yeah. So it's one of those things like you want people to think, man, this broadcasting is amazing. You got the best job in the world, but you know, it is sometimes. It never really feels like work. But at the same time, you know, that was my first year in getting paid to broadcast. You have $500 a month, and I had to help hang fence signs and sell advertising and work in the concession stand and get to call some games. And then one of them, you know, of course, from the bathroom. So I survived that. The lower levels, like they're like the college wood bat league level, like that. You're talking about a lot of places that are kind of like high school stadiums.
Yeah, I just keep picturing this bathroom window. I mean, you couldn't have had a very good vantage point.
Well, you know, you would lose some down the lines.
Okay.
you would lose it down the lines a little bit there, but it was actually like compared to the regular press box, it wasn't that bad.
It's funny you say you wouldn't see it down the lines. I remember somebody talking about an old rickety antique ballpark trying to broadcast from there, and he said right field was a rumor.
Yeah, right. You just like look for the the umpire to call it out. Well, what else before we wrap this up? And it's been great talking to you, not just to help promote your book, and I hope you guys go out there and buy it, but also because Tim's been a longtime friend and someone that I pull for in the business. What else should people know about the book?
One of the ones that came from games I broadcast was in the Southern League, 2007. I was broadcasting for Mobile. We were in Montgomery.
I know this one.
And Matt Elliott, a Mobile pitcher, had just given up a game-tying home run. He got so upset, he went into the dugout bathroom without a window and slammed the door, and he busted the lock. The door is stuck to the wall. He has locked himself in the bathroom, but he's still scheduled to pitch the bottom of the ninth inning. Mobile takes the field as the visiting team in the bottom of the ninth. They have 8 fielders, but no pitcher. There's no one warming up. So it's not like they planned to take him out. No injury. And then we get a note in the press box that says Elliott is locked in the bathroom.
No.
Mobile had to change pitchers. The game ended. Matt Elliott was stuck in there for 40 minutes after the game. Montgomery's fire department had to come, bust down the door, and let him out. Pitcher locked in the bathroom. So there's a fun Southern League one for you.
It's a true story. I remember when that happened. Again, guys, the book is Tales from the Dugout. It's by Tim Hagerty, and it is available at Amazon or wherever you get your books. It's 101 inspirational and wild anecdotes from minor league baseball. And it's great. It's definitely something that you will enjoy reading. Thanks, Tim.